Hey everyone, Aesop's here. Today I want to talk to you about the Ron token and why I don't think this token is going to go above $5. So let's get into it, guys. The first thing I want to show you right off the bat here is the number of transactions on the Ronin network versus the Ethereum network. You can see over the past about month, we've been having about 1 million transactions per day on average on the Ronin network. That's important to note because this could be things like buying Axies, selling Axies, claiming SLP, sending assets like sending Axies to other wallets, sending SLP to sending AXS, all those kind of things. Right now, when you try and do a transaction, it'll show you how many free transactions you have left for the day. So you start out with a base of 100 free transactions per day. However, once the Ron token gets launched, it's going to be used as a fee to power the Ronin network. So let's get into some numbers here as to what that could mean going forward for the Ron token. Quick note, by the way, if you guys do want this spreadsheet that I'm showing you in this video, feel free to join my Discord. It'll be in a channel called documents-public, and you'll be able to download it from there. So spreadsheet will be for free, available to you guys in my Discord. What I did here, and credit to Max Brand for this original amount of data right here, I made an adjustment based on, because that data is from about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. So I did make an adjustment based on the amount that's been farmed since then, and got to about 80 million Ron token. What this means is that these different Ron prices, here's the different market caps. And I just want to highlight this because some people are saying Ron token is going to go to $100. Well, that'd make it more valuable than the AXS token, the Axie governance token. But also, you'd put the Ron token at an unrealistic expectation. And I'm going to get into that in a second as to what I mean. But like, remember, that's going to be used for a transaction fee. And it might not be a whole Ron. It might be a half Ron, quarter Ron, whatever, as a transaction fee. But as we get into some numbers in a second, you'll see why it doesn't make sense necessarily for them to launch it at $100 per Ron token. As well as this would put the Ron token in a top 15 slot on the market cap wise. So it would be extremely optimistic for it to launch at these numbers. And maybe it could hit that in the future. Maybe if they burn Ron token, something like that. But right off the launch, it seems a little optimistic to me. So let's get into it. The thing I want to show you here is some math that I did for fee wise. And because remember, the Ron token is going to be used as a fee on the network. What I did here is this is just showing you a very simplified version of doing a payout. So when I do a payout to a scholar as a manager, I have to send SLP to myself and send SLP to the scholar. I'm not including claiming SLP on this. So claiming SLP could potentially be another Ron fee. But I'm assuming also that it's one Ron token per transaction. Now, this realistically could be half a Ron token, but I don't see them going into very small fractions of a Ron token per transaction fee because they don't want to have a situation like they have with SLP where you're going to have a bunch more Ron tokens in circulation than the demand. And that would be happening if you did it the other way around. Because remember, there's only about 1 million transactions per day, and it has peaked higher than that. But as of recently, you've only been about 1 million transactions per day, so you don't want too little demand for Ron tokens compared to the total supply. Anyways, here we go. So the things I want to point out here is depending on how you do your payout. We took a daily earnings of 150 SLP per day, current SLP price of 1.8 cents. If you did a bi-weekly payout, you'd be paying out $2,250 or 2,250 SLP every 2 weeks. Monthly, that would be 4,500 SLP. In terms of dollars, that would be about $40 and $81. Now, if the Ron fee was 1 Ron, and each Ron was $1, you'd have a $2 fee, because remember, you got to send SLP to yourself and SLP to your scholar. And this is the minimum of what this would be, as far as number of transactions you'd be paying a fee on. As a percentage of the payout, that'd be about 5%. And the reason why I put these percentages of payouts is I find it's important to note that some of the people I know who have built different software, such as automated payouts, they get a lot of pushback. And they've actually had to drop their fees because people were very upset at paying 5% of their payout for automation, to where you don't have to go through and manually do it. Something that could save hours of time. People were upset at paying 5% to get access to that. Imagine people paying 25% fee just to be able to do a transaction manually. That's still going to take hours. So this is kind of where my gauge is at, based on market sentiment and where people are at. A lot of these automated payouts where they save people time, they provide a ton of value, they're only able to get right now around a 1 to 3% fee. So I'd say on this, maybe they could push for a 5, maybe even up to a 10% fee, proportionate to the dollar amount right now, because obviously SLP is lower, it could go higher. But again, this is something important to consider, right? Is obviously somebody's not going to at the stream end pay all their earned SLP in the transaction fee. That's just not going to happen. So here you go. Here's what we're looking at. I think this might shift people to a monthly basis instead of bi-weekly for this reason of this percentage of the payout as a fee is lower every time. And this is something that's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But I think like this is where you're going to be hitting your top end right here is a 5% fee if people were doing manual monthly payouts. Then you'd be about 12% of their earned SLP based on current values. That's kind of where I'm seeing it being, because there's a lot of pushback right now. Scholars are at minimum for the most part 50%. Some scholarship programs are all the way up to 70%. So I don't see a manager able to digest this kind of a fee. I mean, if you're a manager and you're only having 30% come into you, imagine paying a 20% fee. So you really only get 10% after your fee, unless you make your scholar pay some of the fee, which is definitely a possibility. But this is something that's got to be considered here, is how does this play out? And let's say maybe they do cut the RON into 0.5 RON for a transaction. Well, then you could, instead of it the $10 RON price being a $20 total transaction fee, if it was only 0.5 RON, then really you'd be having a $10 fee. So it would be, again, 12%. So you could maybe see it push as high as $10, but again, I think it's going to be lower because how much pushback I'm seeing from something like automation that provides a ton of value. And I think the issue is people psychologically are going to be upset from its free transactions to having to pay a lot of money for transactions. It's just, even though they might be saving a lot compared to Ethereum gas fees, just conceptually, psychologically, people will struggle when you take something away from them. You take the free away and you make them pay for it. People just don't like that. So again, I think there's going to be that pushback, even if you were to provide a ton of value through this. That's why I don't see the RON fee going higher than about 10% of the amount being paid out. So if we hop over to this farming, so let's say you're farming RON, you're part of these liquidity pools, and let me actually show you where I got these numbers. So right here we have AXWETH and SLPWETH. We have the values locked up on each one, and I'll show you those numbers real quick. So if you go over here to Katana, this is the exchange that the Axie or the Sky Mavis team has put together. If you go over here to pairs, you can actually see the amount of liquidity locked into these two pairs. So again, the SLPWETH, AXSWETH, you can see these numbers here. If we hop back over, what I did here is, so every day, and hop back over one more time, just to show this. If we go right here, you can see the daily reward is 555,556 RON, or wrapped RON, every day. If we hop back over, go, you'll be able to see. So what I did here is I took the rewards divided by the dollars locked up to get how much RON are you getting per dollar that's locked up. You can see these two numbers here. What about RON per $100 that you lock up in these two different pools? You can see how those vary, and then per year, what would that look like on an annualized basis? Because a lot of people like to know what the annualized basis. Obviously, you're going to have different amounts of rewards over time. The reward amount is going to change, that kind of stuff. But just to make it very simple, here's on an annualized. You can see off this, SLPWETH is a lot higher RON rewards if that's what you're going for. And here's what those returns would be looking like depending on the different RON values. So if you see that $5 to $4 price range that I'm saying on the high end you would probably be able to get, you'd see that you're going to get about 300 to 400% return. And it's important that you guys check this stuff before you do it. It's subject to change, so this is not financial advice at all. It's important for you to look into this because these numbers do change every day. So you'd be looking at pretty solid returns if you did SLPWE. There's obviously the issue of losing value over time, and you guys can look up other videos about that, but basically impermanent loss is what it's called. But basically the idea is that with these pools, they want you to keep an even dollar amount of SLP to WETH. So let's say it's $1,000 of each. So as the value of those two changes, it's going to sell a little bit of one and buy a little bit of the other to keep those value dollar amounts about even. which means as prices change, if SLP drops, you're going to be selling SLP on the way down. Or buying SLP on the way down. So you're going to have a problem there. That could potentially happen. So it's important to understand what's going on there. Another thing I want to point out is that there are RON futures. If you don't know what this is, don't mess with it, obviously. But basically, the idea is that this is not the same as just buying RON. Okay, and I just want to make that clear. Again, before you trade any of this stuff, make sure that you know what you're doing. I'm not going to explain what the futures are, but right now these are trading at about $4. So that again matches with my idea of a $4 to $5 RON price on the higher end. Makes sense over here, where you'd be about 10% of your payout as a fee. Now, how that gets split between the scholar and the manager, I don't know. That's all obviously up to every individual manager, but this is kind of my guess based on what I'm seeing, based on the market sentiment from different programs charging. Again, a lot of these programs are getting pushback if they're trying to charge anywhere close to 5% of the earnings as a fee for providing a service. So this is what my guess is. If they did push to make it higher, I feel like a lot of people are going to be upset, and we're just going to continue this negative trend. So it is, of course, potential that you could see a lot higher RON price, but unless they adjust the amount of RON per transaction fee, maybe it's 0.25 RON, something like that. Unless they make an adjustment, I see it hurting Axie Infinity. So for the long-term sustainability of Axie, I think RON would have to be under $5, but that's my guess based on the data that I'm able to see here, guys. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll catch you on the next one.